Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Dude, this has been a long time coming. We wanted to get you on pre the offsite, but you're back now. Where did you go?
We went to Puglia in Italy,
Nice.
which
How's
was
the
very
food?
nice. The food was very good. I pretty much spent a week eating solely carbs, but it was phenomenal.
You're built like Travis Kelsey though, so you need that protein.
Yeah, your words, not mine.
Yeah, but look, he's dating Taylor Swift. He's a great guy. Kind of, you got the same type of hairstyle going on from
You're
two
not the
years ago.
first person to say that. I've gotten that a few times.
It's that tight end build, man. Like you're built like a
Yeah.
rock. Look, give us a little bit of intro into Max for us. Like introduce yourself for the stream.
Yeah, my name is Max. I work in the go-to-market team at ElevenLabs. I live in London. I'm originally Dutch. I've kind of grown up all over the place. When I learned to speak English, grew up in the US. And now I live in North London, English bulldog named Moose, Canadian fiance. And yeah, deeply embedded now in month 2.5 or so at the juggernaut in all things AI when it comes to voice and sound and agents.
ElevenLabs feels like the only place to be when it comes to building anything audio with AI, but it's also like consistently iterating their product. So it just feels like it's seeping into other things now, right? It's now not just the only place to go and get an audio model. It is this producer, it's this orchestrator of things.
Yeah, it's if you think about it in two ways, there's obviously like the creative platform where you can generate music with a prompt, you can create sound effects, you can clone your voice, you can design a voice, you can bring your voice to life with text to speech, you can transcribe things. But then we also have the agent side, where basically we use the power of kind of that entire suite to enable businesses to kind of deploy agentic agents for a variety of use cases. So that can be customer support, that can be AI SDRs, that can be recruiter screens, you name it. The use cases are really endless. And that's what's really taking off right now.
Boots on the ground. When you say agentic, do people just like, do their eyes glaze over when you're talking to customers?
A
Or do
little
they do
bit
they
because
do
it
they
is
get it? Or do you have to explain it to them?
it's one of these buzzwords where everyone understands like the concept, but how it actually works or what it actually looks like varies. And then the perception will skew from some people who think, everything can be agentic and it's just like that. You just flick snap your fingers and it works. And then there's the other skew where, people are like, oh my God, this is going to take over everyone's jobs. Um, it's kind of in the middle, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's pretty much really good for anything where you wouldn't really want to pay people to do it.
Hmm.
So for example, like say you're a fintech and like you've sent out a new credit card. So say, you sent out a new credit card, someone hasn't used it in the last 7 days, you wouldn't pay someone to go call that person and be like, hey, you haven't used your card yet. But for, fractions of a cent per minute of conversation, you could deploy an agent in a voice that's curated to your brand to kind of trigger that activation. And then if you think of that, on a massive scale, the ROI is clearly there because the quicker you get people to use your product or onboarded and get that stickiness, you as a business at that point benefit. And you can now do that at scale in any language you want across the globe 24/7, a lot easier than you ever could before. And with ElevenLabs, you can do all that in one platform.
How sticky is that ElevenLabs product? So when you're integrating into enterprise, like from your end, how often are people using the product? Are they actively seeing these, productivity gains that typically we in the news they're saying that there is anything. There is not any productivity gains. Because on my
Yeah.
end, I see it.
Yeah. So I would say, there's a variety of use cases when it
Hmm.
comes to AI, right? So like AI is a large, just kind of this name that we call everything. In the agentic space, the ROI is kind of clearly there. Because, for example, if you had an SDR, right? Say your costs you an SDR now. Let's say you pay an SDR 40K a year, right? For that 40K, you could pretty much have, 10,000 agents, probably, if not more. Um, and you also have to factor in that agent is immediately onboarded, right? It doesn't have bad days like a human SDR. If you're getting the phone slammed on you 100 times a day, you're not really sure. There's very high attrition. Um, the benefit there is basically you can cover a lot of ground for a lot less. And
Hmm.
then, for example, if you've got low value leads or kind of leads that humans already passed over, you might as well just throw them back into the cycle because whatever you can scrape from there, is just automated extra revenue.
Do you? Do you use the ElevenLabs product when you're doing outreach or you are actively communicating with customers?
So we use the product, for example, for our own documentation.
Mm-hmm.
So as you've got a variety of tools or SaaS platforms where you go on a docs page and there's API references and whatever else, right? It's basically information overload. Where on ours, for example, you have a web widget, which is voice or chat, that can kind of guide you through any of your questions. And the best way to think about that is if you're any business, right? The quicker a user understands how to use your product,
Mm-hmm.
the quicker they start adopting your product, the easier it is for them to navigate, the longer they engage, the more they engage, um, and the more exposure they get. So we kind of really take that to heart in terms of even our own product, and where we can, we do use it. Right now, we're also using it for kind of like first phone screens, right? For like recruitment
How
and our
good is it?
recruiters. It's very good in the sense that you'll know it's AI, because also in some regions you have to disclose that for certain purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it sounds very natural, and the naturalness is not really just the voice; it's the latency.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a variety of AI customer support providers, but what really makes a difference is one, the voice and the naturalness and the tones and the simple things that make all of us human, right? Like the ums, the ahs, the whatever else. And the second is how natural the conversation dialogue goes. Because if there's like a 4 or 5 second pause between any interaction, it's very frustrating, especially if you're calling like customer support. Um, and thankfully, because it's all in one platform, that is kind of one of the marquee things that we're able to do, is rather than being a Frankenstein of a bunch of different AI tools stitched together, which naturally leads to kind of increased latency, it's all built in house and it all uses kind of our tools.
Oh, dude, that is so awesome. When I've picked up the phone and realized it's AI, do you know what gets me the most? It's not the voice; it's the fact that they've woven in the background sounds. And like you can
Yeah,
go and build that inside of ElevenLabs's like sound product now, right? It's like give
yeah,
me some background vibes,
yeah,
whether it's like an office and you can sort of hear the murmuring, and having to discern between what's real and what's not is the single hardest thing to do.
yeah. And what I tell people is the very simple way to think about it is that like it essentially eliminates the concept of hold time,
Mm.
right? Because now you can scale across so many different languages. Again, it's fully ramped on like your brand. You can tailor it to your brand. It's always the same. It's consistent in terms of it's always upbeat, right? Or you can make it depressed if you wanted to.
Oh, let's not do that. That would be
But
weird.
beyond that, like when you're calling customer service,
Hmm.
ultimately, whether it's AI or a human, all you really care about is my problem going to be solved? And we've even seen that with some customers where the average customer service interaction was like 15 minutes between someone, looking things up in the background kind of platform to bring up the kind of like customer file, where now with an API call, that's all done, where something that took 15 minutes gets reduced down to a 2-minute interaction. So I ask people, would you rather be on customer service with a whole time and a 15-minute conversation, or no whole time and a 2-minute interaction where your problem gets solved?
We take the no hold time every single day of the week, right?
Yeah, because we live in a kind of an era of convenience, right? It's the reason the Amazons of the world work, is because I want my goods tomorrow or as quick
Hmm.
as possible. And the same happens with our kind of our daily interactions. We don't have like the attention span to wait around. Everyone's busy. So the quicker a problem gets solved, the better the customer experience. And ultimately, that's all you care about as a customer.
What's this playbook looking like for enterprise today? We had Microsoft on the show like a couple of months ago, and we were talking about Copilot and discussing how they actively, have to communicate to customers the value that this is going to produce inside of the company. And there's this sort of like winning over that has to happen. It's almost like win hearts and minds, but not of senior leadership. It's very much of middle management.
Sure.
That is where their bottleneck is, because they believe that internally inside these large enterprises, the problem is that there are individuals think that this tool is going to take their job away, and actually it's going to enhance and speed up the flows they already have. Do you run
Yeah.
into a similar thing?
So I would say like if we split this on like the agent side, for example, it's not really just a tool, right? It's more it's taking it's automated, right? It's autonomous. A tool, for example, like a Copilot, you still need to engage with it. For you to be productive, you have to use it. An AI agent, you deploy it, like no one has to. It's basically it's front facing or it's doing something. There's no real like human in the loop element, where depending on how much you engage with it is how productive you will or will not be.
Hmm.
Um, I think the ultimate learning curve for one is the general, I guess, fear mongering, right? Where people think, oh, wow, is this the first domino? What I always say is, our perception of all the millions of use cases that AI can have, like theoretically, sure. But in practice, it's actually a lot harder to kind of do those things. And also, companies are also conscious of like even their own brand reputation, right? No one wants to be known as the company that's adopting all the AI tools just to eliminate all the humans, right? That is just not a good look for anyone, and no one wants to be that person. Um, I think in terms of just like general adoption, so if we think more like creative platform, um, on the other side, it's fun, right? You can take someone who has zero musical talent like myself, and you can create kind of a song that is completely copyright free, right? That normally speaking, you probably have to go pay an agency $10,000 for. And it's not, music that right now is, Spotify level quality that you and I are going to like add to our
But like the
playlists.
bet is in time that it gets there,
Correct.
because the models
But
just improve staggeringly every single time.
100%. And then it's, how good are you at using these tools? It then becomes like from skill of like the independent skill of making music to what you hear everywhere, where the primary skill any business is talking about now for new hires, or you hear people on LinkedIn, like if I had to give someone in college a, piece of advice, is prompt engineering. Is how good are you at prompting, right? How do you understand the mechanics of this LLM? How do you make this work for you? Because ultimately the tool is only as good as the way you use it and like the way you use it for you, right? It's not gonna fish for you, so to speak. But the more you kind of embrace it, just like, in the advent of the internet, there were people like, oh, this is evil, I don't want to deal with the internet, whatever else. You're gonna be left behind. And now the concept of not having the internet in our day-to-day lives seems like so, obscure. So I think like the biggest challenge one is just on the tool side is just adoption. It's understanding how it works, making it as simple as possible for people to use it. And then it's like the general buy-in, which usually happens like top down, right? It's you get the middle managers who kind of encourage their team to use it and like present it as something, hey, this is going to help eliminate all like the boring stuff you want to do. For example, we'll say like the basic version of ChatGPT that everyone currently uses is like, hey, help me rewrite this email or help me write this LinkedIn post.
Consistently the same thing.
At the end of the day, it's not writing the email for you, but it's basically rather than you sitting there having to check your grammar and the structure of your sentence, and I'm being a bit too verbose here, right? You're getting way more productive. You can send more emails. It makes your life way easier. And you don't want to spend your work day, because you have a lot of things to do, drafting or composing the world's greatest email. That's how people should think kind of productivity when they think about these tools. That's something that enhances the mundane, first of all.
What's the best metaphor you found for what ElevenLabs is?
I think the best metaphor for what ElevenLabs is basically it's anything you can hear is pretty much like the goal is to make that as natural or lifelike as possible, but also accessible to people in any corner of the globe, right? Something that gets like overlooked a bit is like the multilingual components, right? If you think about of most tools or things that were deployed originally, right, they're usually serving like English heavy regions of the world. But for example, if you can unlock something where now you can support, customer support in the various, languages in, for example, Southeastern Asia, right? That additional touch of like localization or personalization goes a very, very long way. So it's basically the bridge to basically make everything sound local and familiar anywhere in the world.
It's just an incredible product, isn't it? When we get down to the core of it, it's so easy to sell into enterprise. It's so easy for customers to use because it's just a great product. It makes your life easy, right?
Conceptually, it's easy, but they're still winning hearts and minds because it sounds so amazing. It comes down to actually like proving it.
Does it not? But it does the job, right? Like it does what it says on the tin.
I will say, like, even on the creative side, there's not many products in B2B, definitely none I've ever sold, that's going to trigger an immediate like emotional reaction from people, where people are going to be like, holy crap, like that is so cool.
Do you get that every time you do a demo?
Pretty much anytime you do a demo for music or text to speech, even now with our V3 model, where you can have something done in the voice of like a British football announcer who's screaming into the mic and can say anything, like it's fun. Like it's an automatically fun thing. People immediately grasp the concept. And ultimately, like if you can make anyone feel anything in a sales cycle that's positive, doesn't matter what you're selling, it's usually a good sign.
Has the sales cycle changed, or is it consistently the same?
Obviously it evolves, right? I would say, we have a huge amount of inbound, right? But also now every single enterprise company in their kind of financial reports, their C-suite is talking about, hey, how do we adopt AI? So it's a bit of the gold rush right now. And where we really differentiate is mostly one on like the support we give,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that happens top down, right? From like Maddie's in customer channels, Maddie's in support channels, even, our head of GTM for, international,
Is
Carlos.
Maddie in support channels as Maddie, or does he go under a username?
No, he's as
Like a synonym
Maddie,
as Maddie.
like as Maddie, like he, everyone here kind of lives and breathes it and also like embodies kind of what they preach. And even like our head of go-to-market, Carlos, like you will see him replying to customer support emails here and there when he has time. So, it's a very customer-centric organization. And then beyond that, it's, we've kind of proven our dominance when it comes to, voice. And now it's like, okay, how do we take that power and the power of, all the developments our research team has done and now commoditize that into a product that becomes kind of a business transformer.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of like the application of voice agents across multiple channels and use cases.
Where do you see it going? Like, obviously, you're on the front lines. You are selling this into organizations. You're actively having conversations with customers, demoing, etc. Do you sometimes find yourself sitting there and going like, "Oh my God, this is so much bigger than what we even imagine it to be"?
I think it's mostly like the concept of things you aren't using a call for today. Because
Right.
obviously the most natural vector of communication for humans today is a phone, right? It's pretty much where most of us organize our entire lives, communicate with everyone we love through, entertain ourselves. For many people, find our partners or spouse nowadays. That because of that conduit, I think that, the power of voice and the voice as a communication channel, like it cannot be underestimated in terms of how simple and easy it is. And even now on like the coding front, you see a variety of AI companies where now through voice, you can essentially like interact with a coding assistant where what you have to remember is you can speak a lot more words at a far quicker rate than 99.9% of people will ever type. So that automatically is an efficiency gain. And then the second is when things feel familiar and things sound like human and natural, the more willing people are to engage with it, right? The general rule of thumb is if it doesn't sound natural, people don't want to engage with it. It's the reason most people, don't really engage with Siri. It's the reason most people turn off their car sat nav is because it sounds robotic. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like a natural conversation and actually just is a pain in the ass waiting for these like staggered responses. And oftentimes it's not really a two-way conversation. But once you unlock that and then you can make it sound, familiar and tailor it to every individual user, every individual customer. For example, you have an inbound customer support call from someone in Scotland, right? And you can immediately deploy an agent that has a Scottish accent. People are automatically going to gravitate to that more because if it sounds familiar, there's the automatic that feeling of connection. And then beyond that, it's always listening in the sense that it's not they're tired on their 100th call of the day, maybe missing out pieces of information or frustrated or things are taking like extra time. I am very like bullish on, there's a lot of use cases that we even really thought about. But the deployment is happening on almost every angle. It's more right now working with these enterprise customers to kind of prove, 1, 2 use cases, and then they kind of have the proof of concept and then expanding that into variety of customer facing or even back office operations.
What's the wildest reaction you've had to ElevenLabs?
Um, Honestly, I think the one that gets the people the most is actually has nothing to do with the commercial side.
Uh-huh.
It has to do a lot with our impact partnerships. So who work with charities where people might have lost their voice because of ALS or whatever else, where people are basically able to get their voice back. So for example, someone who can't speak to their kids anymore because of, some form of medical condition, where now through the power of text to speech can use recordings from old family videos or whatever else to essentially redesign their voice where now they can communicate again. And I think conceptually, when people think about imagine if you could not speak anymore, imagine if today, like you can talk to anyone you loved anymore, you can say I love you anymore. Like the immediate emotional reaction that would get in terms of when you think about that, and then think about if there was a company that could do that for you, and the power that that would have on your life.
And so there is a company that can do that. And so it
There is a
becomes
company that can
possible.
do that and does it very well. It's called ElevenLabs.
Oh man. Look, I want to go back to the offsite for a bit. Why was Italy chosen?
No idea, but I'm going to give a very big shout out to the operations team that
Yeah.
helps kind of schedule that, because getting 300 plus people to one location and also making sure that the Wi-Fi is stable enough for kind of a startup where nobody's ever really offline.
Were you working while you
Oh
were
yeah,
offsite,
yeah,
and like
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
was just
yeah,
like
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
cracked
Everyone's
coding
working.
away?
Like that's not like that might sound insane to other people. But it actually, for a remote first company, it creates kind of like this energy and this bond, where everyone is kind of bought in. Like that is the best way I describe ElevenLabs to people, is everyone is very intrinsically motivated. Um, but everyone is very like bought into the missions. And then when you're kind of like collectively all bought into a thought and like
Hmm.
all believe in the same thing and going the same direction, energy kind of feeds off of energy.
What's the mission as you see it at 11 Labs?
Dominate audio,
Just
in every
period.
single dominate audio, be essentially the go-to when people think about like audio or voice, whether that's agents, whether that's in creativity, that ElevenLabs becomes the one stop shop. And as that expands, that becomes essentially, that becomes like the creative hub for creators on the kind of consumer side or on the enterprise side in the same way, and for people who want to deploy kind of voice agents, the kind of primary platform or the best in class platform to be able to do that.
I guess there's a real bet there that the medium that we are going to move to use the technology with will be voice, and 11 Labs is building for that future.
Voice is never going to go away,
Hmm.
right? Because it's a kind of, it is one
I
of the most
mean,
powerful
yeah,
communication tools we have as humans. But it's the big bet that basically voice, because it's the one that can be the most tailored and personalized, is the most efficient conduit for communication. And therefore, harnessing that power and its application in a variety of settings, is the big bet.
you don't like the idea of these like neural net stuff that we stick on top of their head, and like we're not speaking,
When
we're
that
just mind
happens,
controlling.
right? When that happens, and I tell people, hey, if you're already uncomfortable with having a conversation with an AI customer support agent, when you put on your neural headsets, I would love to see the GTM motion for that and how you convince people. So baby steps.
Just baby steps. We'll start with
Yeah,
voice. We'll kind of do that
yeah,
for another 50 years, and then we'll
yeah,
take it
yeah,
from
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Nice. That is super cool. Uh, One thing we love to ask like teams on the show is very much like, what are the nuanced things you do at 11 Labs that make you different from everyone else? And we try and like figure out what that looks like for every company. For you, is it remote first? Is it something else? Is there like this little thing only 11 Labs people do? Do you call yourself like labbers? Like what's the go-to
No,
word?
I would say, and I mean, I'm not involved in this, but the hiring is very good. Like there is a very strict vetting and
We
hiring
had Becky
process.
on the show. She was hiring for GTM in Europe. It's
Yeah, yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Like the mind on
It's
Becky is nuts.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's everyone. It's that you can look around to your colleagues and like they are the best of the best.
Hmm.
And one that makes you kind of up your game, like in a sense, right? I find that personally very motivating. But secondly, that also gives you confidence. And the more confidence you have in like the people you're working with and the team you're working with, whether that's, your manager, whether that's the person in another team, the more confidence you have in the company, the more buy-in you have. And ultimately, your team is only going to be as good as how bought in people are. Um, and it creates a very motivating and energizing, but also focused environment. And I think that is probably the hardest thing to craft. It's obviously the goal for every single company, but not watering that down as you scale, because there's also this principle of, just because you're growing doesn't mean you need to hire more people.
Hmm.
It's how do you hire the best and how do you do it like in an efficient way where you're hiring for output, not just to have more bodies.
One of the things that I've talked to James about offline a lot is the fact that at 11 Labs, everyone feels like they're ridiculously high agency, more so than like anywhere else. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I think because of like the pace as well, right?
Hmm.
That the company is growing, things are developing. Like even if you look at like the ARR growth in a short span of time, or you think about that, most people have been hired in the last 12 months. you're kind of expected to hit the ground running like from day one and make impact from day one.
Mhm.
Now, there's two types of people. There's some people who will embrace that and some people who will be very daunted by that. Now, I'd say, the vast majority of people here are very driven by that concept and wants to do that, but also do it in kind of an ego-free kind of way where everyone is also very willing to make time to help others. And the people who aren't fit for that, then it's just, hey, it's not a fit. And the kind of that decision is made mutually quickly. But I think that is kind of that is my general observation. I tell people you wouldn't actually need to know what ElevenLabs does or sells. It could be anything. But if you spent like a day, for example, with like the team, you'd be like, whatever these people are doing, just because of the energy they have and kind of the focus and the output,
I just want to be there.
They're probably going to be successful, and I probably want to join that.
I love it. Look, last question before we let you go. What's the Mount Rushmore of founders that you look at and go, these are incredible people outside of the company?
I think that's a tough question because like different founders at different stages.
Yeah, no, look, we're open to it. Just give me some names.
I think that any founder of what's it called, any like company, so whether that's like a Maddie, whether that's a Jesse and NVIDIA, whether that's a Sam Altman, is slightly unhinged, and in the best way possible. I say that because I don't think you can do the things that they're doing or build the things that they're building without being it. So it's more what inspires me. And again, I know I'm going to say bias, and it's going to sound like I'm saying the company name, but having been here now and just seeing like how much Maddie does, like, and in terms of everywhere and anything, and nothing is beneath him. And the example that he sets, you go, okay, that is ideally what you would want the person who is leading the charge to look like, because they set the example for everyone else. And I think that's hard to see unless you're within a company. But I would say that like on the outside, you go, okay, obviously, this guy's built this multi-billion company, right? The AR is growing, whatever. Obviously has to be a smart guy. But like the level of like humility, and like roll up your sleeves, where you would never be able to tell if you interacted with Maddie that like he is pretty much at the forefront of kind of one of the fastest growing AI companies in the world. And this kind of like general attitude of, he also asks people a lot of questions. So even like at the offsite, he would ask people opinions on like, hey, what do you think we should do about this? So he's always also collecting feedback. He's not just dictating top down.
Oh, so he's like iterating this, like he's speeding up his feedback loop both internally and externally. But
yes,
knowing
he is a massive sponge.
Internally, that the source of information is clearer and of more like higher clarity than what he'll get outside in the market potentially.
Correct.
Really cool. What's it like working with your sister at one of the fastest growing companies?
It's a very unique experience.
Yeah,
it makes for a very easy icebreaker. Fun fact, I'll tell you that much. And like a unique one. But it's also cool in the sense that for anyone that has a sibling, like it is a side of your sibling that you don't get to see, right, in most day-to-day time. So automatically, it's a whole side of my sister I don't get to see before that, of like how she presents at work. The second is naturally you get to spend more time with like a family member, which is always fun, especially in a place like ElevenLabs where you are busy. And third, it's also like an additional motivator because one, technically 2/3 of my family's financial future currently is baked into ElevenLabs. And secondly,
it's like all the chips in one place. Maddie, we got to make this big.
Yeah. Because also like your siblings, you also think about like how your output reflects on the other person. So it's an additional like vehicle of motivation for me, at least, to be like, anything I do is also designed in many ways to also make my sister look good, because she was the first one here and have to vouch for me as well. And like I don't take that lightly.
So you're not just there on sibling preference.
No, I'm half Nepo brother, half earned.
Look, half Nepo brother is what we love. Max, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for the time. We're gonna have to have you back on again, man.
Likewise. All right. Thanks.
Chat soon.